Well, hi there. This is Jim the Keys Bartender doing its, I guess, inaugural episode, a repeat episode, since because I don't know how to actually do the intro music for the podcast. If you're not familiar with the podcast, Keys Bartender is a show about life in the Florida Keys and bartending and my observation about life in general. And hopefully you find some value with it. And this is the first episode for the video, and hopefully I can do right by it. Today's show, I'm going to be talking about a continued series about the 12 drinks of Christmas. Today is going to be the second drink, and that'll be the Espresso Martini. Yeah, the Espresso Martini. Also, I'm going to talk a little about how difficult it is to get a Christmas tree in the Florida Keys. It's really not that difficult. You just got to have a little gumption. You got to go out and get that goddamn tree, right? You need it. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the implicit understanding of confidentiality between bartender and patron. I'm going to talk about a couple stories, uh, and it'll try to break down, what do I think the confidentiality applies and what limits does that confidentiality apply itself to. So, if you're familiar with the podcast, you'll understand that I am a fitness instructor too, besides doing several other things. But on Friday, and this Friday was Black Friday, is my morning class, 9 a.m. And that's where I lead a class and we do it. I know I'm moving my hands, but you don't move your hands. You're more like this on a spin bike. And I'm coaxing people with certain I tell them to put more resistance on. I tell them what RPMs to do. I tell them, I say what position we're going to go, where we're going to be attacking a hill, whether we're going to be running in the flats, when we're sprinting, and things like that. And I enjoy doing it because I get to work out and I get paid and I get a free membership doing it. But this Friday, it was Black Friday. Black Friday, where a lot of people are shopping. It's a traditional day for me in the Keys because that's when the trees come to town. The trees come to town. If you're not familiar with this part of Florida, I don't know what the rest of Florida is, but we have very few natural palm trees down here. The coniferous type trees we have, they look more like a fern than anything else. They're shaped like a palm tree, but it looks more like a fern. So we get them shipped in here, and there's no farm that you go and cut them down. At least that I have found. And I'm not one of these people that put it on a palm tree or something like that. It just doesn't have that feel to it. So our local supermarket, the Publix, gets a shipment of trees come in. And they come in Friday morning. And I finish my spin class is at 9 a.m. And I'm usually out of there at 10 if I don't work out a little later. I'm not going to go over my workout log or anything like that. But I'm driving back, and as I have to pass the supermarket in order to get it. I think I have a picture of a tree. Actually should put it on there, but I'll put it on a later episode. Uh, I'm driving by. I pull into the supermarket, and there's 20 cars in line in front of the supermarket. The rest of the parking lot is pretty full because we're still in Thanksgiving weekend. It's kind of busy, and I'm going, oh my God, it's busier than ever. Last year, I think the trees lasted maybe until Saturday. And here I'm looking at it, it looks like less than half the trees are still left. You see just loads of people with some of the supermarket employees out there cutting open the trees and looking at them and, going through one at a time. And then they got to wrap the trees again, I guess. And my tradition is not to ever unbundle a tree until I get home. I'm kind of like the tree whisperer. I just look at the tree and I'm thinking, that looks like a good tree. And it wasn't unwrapped yet. And I got marching orders from the wife. And she's told me I don't want it as tall as last year, and I want it wider at the base. So I look like kind of fat bottom tree Fat Bottom, like that song by Queen, Fat Bottom. No, it was Fat Bottom Girls, but I was looking for Fat Bottom Tree. Oh, Fatter Bottom Tree. And I found it. And as I was getting it, I ran into a bunch of people that I knew. And they're going, why are you buying the tree? You didn't open it. And I said, I never opened the tree. That's just my MO. Never open the tree. And as I'm getting it, I'm looking at all these people doing it. And I'm thinking, where the hell else are you going to get your tree down here? They're going to sell out. But I go and get the tag. I go inside. I ask the guy, are you getting another order of trees? And he goes, no, we're not getting any more trees. And I said, what an excellent opportunity. I think maybe next year I may get a truckload of trees and see if I can split it with the church or do something like that. I guess that would kind of suck. I shouldn't do a split it with the church and stuff like that. I should just give it to them or one of the the food bank. The food bank would be excellent, or the animal shelter. The animal shelter. We could probably get. Yeah, I could just do it up there. We got Christmas trees. We can get like 300 Christmas trees and sell them and make like, I don't know how much you make on Christmas, maybe like 10 grand for the animal shelter. I gotta write that idea down. Remind me if you listen to the show, if it's still on next year. But the show, like I said, this show's been on 5 years so far. You think I would have gotten better at doing a podcast by now, but I haven't. So if you don't get your tree in Key Largo, you got to haul your ass up 26 miles up Overseas Highway. There's only one road that comes up the 126 miles of the Florida Keys. I count 126 miles because it's from the mainland down to Key West, and it's all mile markers right here. So I'm at mile marker 102. You got to get to 126 to get to the mainland, and then you got to get your tree, and it's just a pain in the ass to do that. We're in one of the most congested areas in the United States, and you got to go 25 miles to get a tree. Here I am bitching about that, but that's the way it is. I don't know what it's like. I imagine they have to have more trees down south of here because who in Key West is going to drive 126 miles to get a tree here? So I did talk about that. I'm going to move on. I use these little bullet points right now. It's right. I think it kind of gives me a little more focus when I do it. And the next thing I want to talk about is that kind of priest, penitent, psychiatrist, patient, lawyer, client confidentiality. There is an implicit understanding that what happens is kind of like secret. It happens when it happens. It happens amongst us, amongst people that are at the bar, and if the bartender hears it, he doesn't repeat it. That's an implicit understanding. It's not explicit, because otherwise you wouldn't have all those episodes of Law and Order where they go and see the bartender. And I remember a comedian saying, oh yeah, they go and visit a bartender, and all of a sudden they'll say, did you see this guy about 6 weeks ago? And he remembers what he's wearing, the color of his tie, the lady he was with, and the pen he was using. No. Well, there's a lot of times to remember things at the bar because sometimes something happens that is quite unusual and quite interesting. And you just want to, when something unusual and interesting happens, you like to relate it to your friends and the people close to you. That's the way I am. But if there's two main reasons not to reveal. First of all, if you're a decent human being, you don't want to add fuel to the fire of someone's, it's almost like personality assassination or reputation assassination. And number two, it's good business. If someone realizes you go in there and they tell you something or something, you hear something, you're not going to repeat it. It's good business. Now, there is some caveats to that. At least that's the way I understand it. If someone's doing something that's going to harm someone else, and it's particularly violent and harsh and wrong, I don't feel the need to, not at all, not at all. The confidentiality ends right there. If someone was going to go and do something that it was going to hurt someone, or something was, some tort, and tort is the Latin word for wrong. So a wrongful act, if a wrongful act were to occur, I'd feel the need to interject myself and in any way I can. That's that. But when something happens, like a relationship, someone says something, or to cast a bad light on that person or someone else, I have a tendency to want to keep it quiet. Now, years later, once that story's out and it's been known to be true and everyone knows about it, yeah, I was there for it, you know? And you might say, Jim, it'd be great. It's really good if you tell us exactly what happened last night. And what happened last night, I'm going to tell you absolutely nothing. A person came in, they revealed some information about their personal life. They even told people around them, and they went outside and told people on their patio. Now, those people, they're under no restraint on what to say or do or anything like that. They can just go ahead and talk away, tell everything that they heard. But I felt that the information this person was giving, it was too new and too raw, that they could be hurting themselves and their relationship they're having. So I choose to keep it quiet. So you can agree or disagree with me on that. I don't think it is in my wheelhouse to really reveal things about people that they don't give me an explicit reason. Some people reveal things in a bar in order to make a statement. I got divorced. I'm available. I'm available now. Just come. Here's my number. Are you available? I'm available. She's available, right? But in this case, when you're imbibing, there's a relationship to alcohol and reduced inhibition. And reduced inhibition is it's a similar effect that sodium pentothal, which is truth serum. And alcohol reduces that inhibition, and some people have a tendency to talk more about things you normally wouldn't talk about it. But it doesn't mean that what they're telling you is the truth. And that's a fact. Sodium pentothal, the reason I don't use this a lot of times, after 9/11, the intelligence community was thinking about using it. But when someone's inhibitions are relaxed, their inhibitions to telling a lie may be relaxed too. Years ago, there was a young man walking down Route 1, which is, we call Overseas Highway, the one main road, in front of the bar I work. And the owner tells me there's this young guy walking down and he's getting dangerously close to the highway. So we went and pulled him in from the bike path, which is only about 10, 12 feet away from the highway where there's trucks and everything going by. And we're trying to get information from him, finding where he's from. It turns out he's around 18 years old. It's a day before, or a day or two before graduation. I think a day before graduation. He was at a party. And he was saying some really kind of outrageous stuff. He wasn't in the bar, so there wasn't that confidentiality thing. But I didn't want to go, even though I was at work, I felt I was acting as a bartender. I was talking to the guy. We ended up getting an address from him, and the address happened to be, I guess, the right address. But we put him in a cab, and he ended up. We paid for it, and we sent him on his way. And we eventually got a call from his family. He never made it home. He did get home a little later, but he missed his graduation. Now, I could talk about this. Why not? This is all of 4 years ago. This is how I find my timeline when I remember things. It was prior to COVID, but it was post Irma, which was 2017. This podcast, the audio only portion of the podcast, was created then. That's how I remember this. Also, right around that time, right after Irma, there was someone that worked for us. His name was Mandy. I did not feel any compunction to keep quiet about it because everyone knew him. He got involved with a group of people that were implicated in a murder. One of the guys is in jail for that murder, but he was one of the people who were associated with it. It was a cousin and a friend, and they lived on a boat nearby, and they were working for this lady. Woman ended up being murdered, and then the house was set on fire. So it's murder arson going on. So I did have compunctions. I thought he might have been involved. I had no problem thinking that. So I asked a friend of mine who was high up in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, would a spontaneous confession that occurred at the bar be applicable to evidence to get him and maybe flip one of the guys? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. So I don't have a problem with that. There was another one right after that. A lady had her false teeth taken from her after she put them in a rocks glass. Not at my bar, because that shit doesn't happen at my bar. You do not take your false teeth out and put it into a rocks glass. That happened at the VFW up the street. But she came in asking if I knew a guy named Don Canary, which I thought was made up. But after a little research, we found out that there was a Don Canary. He wasn't a mafiosa guy, and he wasn't a pet canary that she was talking about that walked off with her teeth, because birds do weird stuff. And obviously this Don Canary did, but Don Canary was a man. It happened to be her boyfriend. And he held her false teeth for $500 because she wouldn't give him money. And her name's Jeanette. She passed away and stuff like that. But she went up and down the street telling everyone the story. So I have to say, I was here for it. She told me that, stuff like that. I didn't say, this doesn't happen. She's a fine woman. No, Jeanette did that. And she had a very interesting friend too. Her friend would come in and have martinis, and she kept on getting sick. And one time I asked her, she kept on getting sick. I mean, vomiting. She was vomiting. And she goes, well, my doctor says I shouldn't do this. And I said, maybe you shouldn't drink. And she goes, yeah, I definitely shouldn't. And I go, well, did he tell you why? And he goes, no, he didn't tell me why. He gives me medication. And so what's this medication? Oh, it's medication not to drink. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't drink that martini with the medication that's preventing you from drinking. So, yeah, this lady, I don't even remember her name. So I don't mind that. But that like I said, confidentiality comes with some caveats, and those caveats were, don't kill anybody, don't vomit on my bar, don't walk up and down the street missing your teeth. So, having your teeth being extorted, or is that you're being extorted for your teeth? That would be a very interesting case you don't see on Law and Order. That would be People's Court, or People's Court meets cops. I think that would be perfect. Okay, we're going to finish up with that cocktail, the Espresso Martini. 1.5 ounce vanilla vodka, 1 ounce Kahlua, 1 ounce chilled espresso. Now, what I do is I chill the glass first. You should always chill the glass. You should always use chilled espresso because you don't want to melt the ice. You pour the ingredients into a shaker. You shake it up. Make sure the martini's chilled. Pour it out. Then you take maybe 3 coffee beans, or one of those chocolate coffee beans or something like that. It's great. You put it on top. You can put a little dollop of ice cream. You could also put a little spritz, not spritz because only spritz kind of like club soda, right? Bailey's, Frangelico, or Amaretto. There's tons of things you can make a little fruity if you wanted to do that, like put a little brandy in there too. Um, but I have a tendency to go for something more traditional, meaning stick with the simplistic ones before, get it right the first time before you start adjusting it. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for the first one. I hope it works out all right. I hope the audio is good. I hope the video is good. Um, I'll figure this stuff out in the future. But this is Jim from Keys to Bartender. Keys to Bartending. The Keys to Bartending. That would be a good title. But this is Jim signing off. I'll be back again, and the quality will get better. The quality will get better. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.